Hello, welcome to another episode of Namtaro Talks. Today's episode will be a little bit more fun. I will be talking about my experience with EDM, also known as electronic dance music, and DJing. I don't know where exactly it started. I mean, you can't really pinpoint a specific point in time or a certain moment or format in my formative years of why and when I started liking EDM. I think one good starting point to kind of gauge was I was in as a kid. I mean, of course you go to school, but sometimes on the weekends there's like multicultural or like language schools, or sometimes there's the religious aspects. So sometimes the school is a combination of both. But of course, you don't only go strictly for those two topics. I mean, you meet other kids who go to different schools and they share different interests. And of course, I mean, the extent of my music at that time, it was just whatever the kids in elementary school were talking about, like the current pop and a couple of rock here and there. So, I mean, I didn't really know much music back then. I just hear like Britney Spears and the boy bands and Linkin Park. That's it. And maybe some music from video games. But I think my cousins and the older kids at those religious and cultural language schools, they got me more into EDM, though at the time it wasn't really called EDM per se, maybe rave music, but I knew the music was a little bit different because there's songs that were like Sarina Paris's Look at Us Now, Alice DJ's Better Off Alone, there's one song called Matrix, and of course Darude, Sandstorm. I would say those were among the first quote-unquote EDM songs that I heard. I remember one of the older kids, he burned a CD from my brother and I, and we just played the heck out of that CD. We just re-listened to all those songs back and forth. Personally, I like the female vocals for Better Off Alone and Look at Us Now, And can't forget about Daft Punk One More Time. I remember I didn't really have MTV growing up, so I didn't have many means to watch music videos. But there was this one local channel, and it's like a half-hour block in the afternoon. I don't know what it was, every day or every week, but I remember seeing that video for One More Time with all the blue people playing the instruments, and I was like, whoa, what is this? It's kind of like anime, but it's not an anime show or series. And I guess the transition and pivot kind of occurred with the Numa song, or other known as Dragon Stallion Tay by the Romanian group Ozone. I mean, I know with this podcast, I kind of show my age a little bit, but my age, I'm not even that old, but I'm not that young either. But I remember the meme of like that dude with the glasses, and he's like raising his arms to the Numa song. That was one of the first popular videos on the internet. But technically, that counts as EDM. But I was kind of like, oh, whatever about EDM until I went to college. Before that, the biggest extent I heard about EDM concerts or raves, and to me like a rave is just, you kind of like wave your arms around, and maybe there's some like glow sticks and glow lights and people dressed in colorful beads or colorful clothes or whatnot. But I didn't go to those raves. I was too young to go to those raves. I didn't even know anyone who did, except my cousin who was like about 10 years older, but I didn't live near him. He's not going to take me to a rave. And at those points, they were like underground raves. They weren't the giant big productions that you see nowadays with the screens and the lights and the lasers. Well, anyways, into college, I would say I was kind of witnessing the golden age of EDM. It might be a bit subjective, but the general consensus is that's when EDM became more popular, more mainstream, all those names that you hear back in the day in passing, like Tiesto, Armin van Buuren, and Avicii was on the come up at the time, right? Skrillex, like they got more popular. You see their videos and their songs on YouTube more often. They even made a mainstream radio for sure. I remember when I first heard This Is What It Feels Like by Armin van Buuren on the radio. I was like, whoa, what is this? Martin Garrix Animals on the radio, and he was like 16 at the time too. And of course, a lot of Tiesto songs, and I think one of the guys that really kicked EDM into the mainstream was David Guetta, because he collaborated with many artists that were popular in America, like names that I actually recognize, like Neo, Nicki Minaj, and oh man, who doesn't remember Titanium, you know, that song was like one of my favorite songs at the time. And Zed, he also kicked EDM into the mainstream also. Songs like Beautiful Now, Clarity, Break Free with Ariana Grande, Are You Gonna Stay the Night with Haley Williams from Paramore. So at that time period, it was about the early to mid 2010s. Even songs that weren't particularly EDM, you can tell that they were EDM influenced, that they were more upbeat, like a G6 by Far East Movement, a Party Rock Anthem by LMFAO, a fair amount of Calvin Harris songs too, like Outside with Ellie Goulding, and of course Take Over Control with Afrojack. Another song that really got my attention was Turbulence with Steve Aoki and Laidback Luke, because there was that one drop where it just builds up, like the airplane's going crazy, and then Lil Jon, he's like, we hit turbulence, and it's just like this dun 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 dun, and it's just repetitive, you know, kind of heavy and random, and honestly a little bit mindless at times, but it just went hard. I didn't really experience anything like it until I admit I was in the club setting when I first heard it. And of course you got the dubstep stylings of Skrillex. When I first heard Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites, I was like, dude, what the heck is this? Where is this drop? Why did they go, oh my god, who's that kid screaming that? And how do you even play this? How do you even come up with this? Later there I learned that is not really true dubstep. Dubstep is a bit more subdued, like the wub 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 is more from England, from the UK, and that was more underground at the time, and Skrillex kind of popularized it. But what his genre is really more brostep. But of course, you add the word bro to anything, it has a negative connotation. And of course, I learned about different genres. Well, one of the first ones besides the 128 BPM progressive house was going up to 150 with hardstyle, with like the snares and the kicks. And of course, one of the most popular hardstyle artists is Headhunters. I remember the song Dragon Force. Oh no, Dragonborn. Oh, Dragon Force, that's a different band. That's a symphonic rock band. But Dragonborn, I didn't even play Skyrim, but it was crazy, you know. Like his name is Headhunters, and they have this like these synths that just kicked in, and then it's like a dragon flying around, like breathing fire, destroying a village or something. I don't know how to best describe it. And once you follow the scene and the songs for a while, of course, you begin to distinguish different genres. So I already mentioned the progressive house and the hardstyle and Skrillex dubsteps, which is around like 140, 145 BPM. But then you learn all the different subgenres. There's big room house, progressive house, bass house, electro house. And then you learn about, they call it melodic dubstep or future bass also. So it's more synth heavy. They call it sad boy music. It's kind of similar to Illenium or Dabin or Set the Sky, stuff like that. I mean, I don't want to lump them into that kind of genre, but I'm just going by what people are saying. I mean, you don't gotta be a sad boy to listen to that music. It's good music. It gets you in the feels sometimes, you know. But you go to those kinds of shows and you expect what you expect. And you see the come up of some artists like KSHMR, who is part of the Cataracts, who helped produce like a G6, which I didn't know that. But then he broke off and became KSHMR. And like a couple of his old songs like Burn and his namesake song for the region in India, Kashmir. And of course, there's also Dimitri Vegas and Like Mike. I mean, I didn't really knew much about them. I just hear those names thrown around, but I did not knew how big they were and how, I don't know, they seem to, I wouldn't say they had the crowd presence or the kind of broy, but they made the mainstream, you know. They knew what was popular, they capitalized on it, and they knew who to collab with. That's like another thing about EDM, that it's easy to collab. And you see, so all these artists I mentioned, each of them had like at least one collaboration with one another, pretty much, and they collab multiple times, and you get to see each of them bring a different flavor to the songs. Sometimes the most unexpected artists or genres collab with each other. And of course, you can't forget Deadmau5, and they got the songs like Ghosts and Sprites and stuff. Just a quick tangent before I got more into EDM in college. Another exposure to EDM to me was through Dance Dance Revolution. Yep, That game, that rhythm game with the four directional paths, and you step on it. And of course, I had gravitated more the upbeat songs like Dynamite Rave and Drop the Bomb, and though my personal favorite was Butterfly by Smile.dk. All I knew was these songs were fast, were fun, were electronic based, were from Japan. That's it. All I know was, oh my god, I gotta find more songs like that. I didn't know that that in itself even became its own genre, like hardcore or happy hardcore, where it's pretty upbeat, up to speeds of 170, 180 BPM. Personally, one of my favorite two artists were W and Hardwell. Well, because Big Room House was popular at the time. So it's like it builds up and then there's a drop, and then the drop is like deep and kind of synthy, and it's like you're in a big room. I don't know how to best describe it, but it just hits hard, and you just. I like W and W with Thunder and Bigfoot and The Code, but one of my personal favorites was Hardwell because that was probably the first true EDM concert I went to, or a rave, or a clubbing event. I don't even know anymore all of the different labels and blend in together, but I remember it was at a place called Pure Lounge, and I don't even know if that venue is still open anymore. But yeah, I remember when he first dropped Spaceman. That was the first song I liked by him. That's still my favorite song by him. And all the confetti rained down, and nitrogen cannons just sprayed, and oh my god, it was an exhilarating feeling. But it's like a first time, you know. It's like the first time for everything. And at that time, I only knew two other songs: "Never Say Goodbye" and. But it's cool because it's kind of like a rite of passage. You're finally in the know. You finally went to an event and saw the DJ and the lights and the graphics and the lasers. Just another little tangent. The genre trap was pretty popular at the time too. Not to mention Moombathon, where they kind of slow it down a little bit. I think Dylan Francis made that genre a bit popular. And Tropical House, where I didn't know EDM could be a subdued like that, like Kygo is known for that kind of style. I even know EDM could even go even slower and even darker and deeper, like Res, which is the downtempo genre, which I learned about later. I knew it went fast. I even know it went ridiculously fast, like hardcore or frenchcore. And then, to my surprise, I didn't know there were events or sets or artists that dedicate themselves to this genre. I was in college at the time, so it's an interesting position to be in because there's this genre of music is getting popular, it's fun, there are events regarding it. But of course, you want to go, but some are, maybe out of your league or too ambitious. And you got peers who can go or want to go, you got friends who want to go, but. So the events, you're a college student. It's expensive to say the least, and you don't know if you're fully into that culture, if you're really dedicated to it. I admit I have never been to EDC, the Electric Daisy Carnival. At that time, I thought there was FOMO. I thought, am I missing out? Am I not proving myself enough? Will I regret this the rest of my life? But to this day, I'm like, it's cool because I hear stories about EDC. I watch videos about EDC, and it seems fun, but I hear it's a giant commitment. It's like you're from like 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. and then you gotta take the shuttles back and forth, and eating is limited, sleeping is limited, and it takes up to a week to recover from it. That's not me. But power and respect to the people who managed to go. Since you're in the scene for a while, you learn about the different festivals that occur annually across the world. Well, there's at least Ultra Music Festival. First, learn about Ultra Miami, and then you learn about Ultra in other parts of the world. And of course, Tomorrowland that takes place in Belgium, which can host up to 100,000 people or more. And the good thing about these festivals is that they're live streams. So any artist, any set that you want to watch, you don't have to wait for it live. You can just wait for the recording and watch it and listen to it on your own time. And you kind of know when festival season starts and the DJs start playing more and they start featuring new songs more, and you just like hooked onto that song and you can't wait for that song to be released. And then you discover 1,001 track lists to find what song is played when, and You learn to hear about different remixes of different songs, and you kind of like get a little frustrated with certain DJs that they hold on to certain songs for an undesignated amount of time. Sometimes they never ever release it. Can't talk about EDM without talking about Porter Robinson. One thing that stood out to me was that he was a bit different because you knew he was EDM, but you weren't fully sure where to like place him, because you got slower songs like Sad Machine, but you got like the house songs 128 BPM like Language too. But then with the World's album, it kind of tells a story, and then you go to one of his live shows that puts together that cohesive story onto giant visuals. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to go to a World's show during that time. And I was like, oh my god, I'm missing out on Porter Robinson. That's another thing about the rave scene, the EDM culture at the time. With FOMO, you feel like you gotta go to as many events as you can possibly can. But sometimes that's unrealistic, of course. And there's only so many artists you could care about. And I count my blessings because I live near several urban areas. So I get fair access to certain shows. And I get to be more picky and choosy. I don't have to drive hours at a time or even fly into specific shows. The two venues I say that I frequented quite often was Pure Lounge and Bill Graham. And if you recognize those venues, you kind of have a general idea where I'm from. But it's one thing to listen to the music, to hear it play, to be at a show with it. But you look at the DJ and sometimes he stands right in the front and center, and he's animated and extroverted and waving his arms and vibing with the music, but he's in control, he's pressing the buttons, he dictates the mood and the genre, and you're kind of like, wow, I want to get in on that. What does it take to learn how to do that? There's a guy, he's not really a close friend, more of an acquaintance, but he volunteered to DJ for us at our social club's end of the year party, and then afterwards he invited me. Well, a couple weeks later, I came over to his apartment and he sat me down and he showed me the program he used at the time was Virtual DJ. He showed me how to beat match, how to cue music, how to do song selection, and how to work the controllers. And at first, I did not have a real controller. I just did it on keys on my laptop. But that's when I began to develop a music collection. I learned to download music and look for music here and there. Though I admit, I don't buy all my music. Ooh, bad. I don't go in Beatport and spend $2 or $3 on every song. Well, that's why I'm not a professional. That's why I seek out places that have free MP3s to download. Or I get the crappy YouTube rips, or the SoundCloud rips are a bit better, and I still do SoundCloud. But over time, people caught on, and those sites are not as available anymore. But you need to access it somehow. I admit, I'm still old school. I don't use Spotify. I still download MP3s, drag and drop on my MP3 player. But I amass a sizable music collection over time. Of course, you kind of follow the scenes, you follow the labels, you download albums, but then you figure out what's good, what's not, what's just filler or fodder. You gotta really sift and sort through. You gotta do a lot of digging. Sometimes it's needles in haystacks. You're meticulous, you look down different rabbit holes, you find new artists, new genres, new remixes, songs that you never even, it was inconceivable that there's a remix for that someone was creative enough to make a remix for that. But then again, that's just DJing. Does not even get to music production. And I mean, I looked into that very briefly, but it was too much of a learning curve. And of course, you gotta really dedicate yourself to that also. But it's okay. DJing and finding music is enough for me at the time. Yeah, I would make DJ mixes and find out what works and what doesn't work with each other, and work on the transitions, work on the beat matching. And I make mixes. One of my preferred lengths is about 40 minutes at a time, give or take. Even came up with the moniker Namtaro. Honestly, I'm not sure where it came from. My best guess would likely be from Hamtaro, that one anime back in the day with the hamster. But yeah, I make my inspired mix series. And of course, at first it was strictly EDM, but then I get to be more creative, add different genres into it. Pop songs, rock songs, old songs, hip hop songs. And I began the Namtaro Now end of the year mixes, which featured the songs that I was really feeling that year. And I started that since 2016, and it's still going on. Some years there's too many songs to pick, or the songs don't really fit with each other in one single mix, so I have to make 2 or 3 mixes. And over time, much later, I had the Namtaro into EDM mixes, which included songs that got me into EDM, that kind of takes me back to that magical time during undergrad in the early 2010s. And out there's a Namtaro K-pop mix or Japanese music mix. Yeah, so Namtaro, he doesn't just talk, he DJs and mix music. Well, I don't really make the music, I make the music mixes. Well, you know what I'm talking about. Of course, it was just in the place I was staying at when I was in school. Well, at first undergrad and then grad school. I tried a couple of events, but it didn't really work out because people didn't like the music I was playing, or they say it was too loud, or they cut me off short after 20 minutes, and I was not happy about that. But it just gave me more time to just like hang out, explore more, learn more, practice more, transition more, experiment more. Definitely download and collect more. Even try my hand at it at a couple of family events. And I mean, they respect it, they do enjoy it, but even I know that wasn't my best performances. One thing I did was exercise while I do the mixes. Like, okay, I made this transition, okay, do some jumping jacks, or do some jumps, or do some knee-ups, or do some burpees, or do some push-ups in between the songs. And I know if I have time to do that kind of stuff, I'm not really DJing, or I should be active with the buttons a bit more. But hey, I got a workout, I made a mix out of it. I recorded like the track list for it, and it strings together many workout sessions, hundreds to be in fact. And I am not sure how the magic started. It was during grad school, and we had an end of the year party, and I volunteered to DJ for that party. Then at that point, I guess my skills, like whatever they are, improved a bit, and my song selection was a lot better. I picked a lot of songs that I thought that people could vibe to, like remixes of popular songs. Can't go wrong with that. I knew that a lot of my classmates did not have the same like EDM taste as I do, but I could find a little thing here and there that they could relate to. And nevertheless, they enjoyed it. It was a big hit. I would say I DJ'd for my grad school classmates at least 3 or 4 times. But the sets were long. Oh my god. I think I had like a 3 or 4 hour set a few times. They were nice to me. They brought me like food, like pizza and drinks while I DJ'd. During COVID, I even live streamed myself DJing a couple of times. Though after a while, I kind of realized that it was a vanity spectacle project, if anything, because I had my speakers which flashed different color lights, and I DJ'd in my room, and of course you turn off the lights, and I had those like strip lights that you tape along the corners of the wall that flash different colors too. And it's fun to watch, but after a while it is what it is. Personally, I just like playing the music. I like the music, but you get a little bit self-conscious. You don't want to worry too much about how you look while you are DJing too. And I must say, one of my more favorite artists at the time was Porter Robinson. And I remember, oh my god, I regretted not being able to go to any of his shows, not the world shows. And when he had that other alias of Virtual Self, which was kind of like takes it back to the 2000s, like I guess electronic music, kind of like DDR-esque music. I don't know how to best describe it, but when he had that one song, Eon Break, and it's like 180 BPM, and it's like fast, and it's very synthy, and literally the beginning of the song is this one sound of when you select a song in DDR, and he had like Virtual Self events, and it's like a bunch of funky old songs from the early 2000s, late 90s that I didn't know about, and the production was all like the blue and white and black lights that just shine up. And he had that one stage too. I couldn't go to any of it because I was, well, one, I was in grad school at the time, and he wasn't anywhere near where I went to grad school. And two, being a student, you're strapped for money. You're broke. I mean, you're at the mercy of your parents still. You're not working. And I could have worked, but I chose not to because I needed to focus on school. I couldn't afford to be distracted. So I missed the entire Virtual Self era of Porter Robinson. But lo and behold, I finally finished grad school, and that's when he decided to host his Second Sky Music Festival. which is kind of near where I lived. And of course, after grad school, I gotta study for the boards. And but luckily, the festival, it didn't really interfere with my studying. So I just like grinded throughout the days and bought the tickets, and I knew that was like my break, my reward. Like after all these years of like not being able to go to many events and being relatively alone in my music taste, I admit it was a little bit lonely at times. I was the only one among my friend groups and classmates who was really into this kind of music and this kind of scene as much as I was. I mean, I had one other friend who was into it, and we did go to a couple events near our grad school, but that scene is small, and I admit too, well, one of the event we went to, it was really terrible. I paid $10 to get in, and I knew why it was $10, because it was run down and the bathroom was like broken and flooding, and the windows for the bathroom on the second floor was broken, so you could have literally fallen out onto the street. Well, we were just I don't know, grateful to have an event. But the second event was a bit better, and it was like more colorful and had big stage, small stages, a Ferris wheel, different stages. There was a hardstyle stage, a trance stage. But anyway, back to Second Sky. I think that was the first real festival I went to, even though it was just a single day. Yeah, it went from, I think, noon to 10. Yeah, and I was there the entire time. I saw all the artists. I was there that one day where he had a special guest, and that guest ended up being Skrillex. Yeah, and of course, I like Madeon at the time too. Madeon is Porter Robinson's like French friend, and of course, Porter Robinson wanted people to get there early to experience all the other artists. So he played his virtual self set at the beginning of the show, though it was only half an hour. I was just grateful, I got to see, it's like some notches under my belt. Or that's the thing about EDM people sometimes. It's like, oh, I saw this artist many times, or I went to this or that event. So I can say I saw virtual self. Yeah, and I went by myself, and it was totally fine. I remember I got pretty hungry, and the cheapest thing there was a vegan burrito for $10, and I just made the most of that burrito. And honestly, there was so much standing, which is expected at a music festival, but I stood for like, I think about 5 hours straight, and I tried to like time it, so I tried not to drink too much water so I wouldn't have to go to the bathroom. I was like chewing like multiple gums. I tried to nudge my way into a decent spot, so it's not too close to the front, but not too way far back, and kind of close to the middle. Yeah, so I saw artist after artist after artist, and then of course Porter Robinson, he chose to play his world set. I think he brought it back. That's why he played all the hits. He had all the visuals. I really enjoyed going to Second Sky. It was a nice break from studying for the boards, and I must say it was organized. It was wholesome. It was affordable. Now I still got a little bit of time. I'm gonna get a little bit more personal with it. Yeah, EDM, it got me through some tough times. Of course, my nature is to be curious and explore, and that started off in high school when I was young, and then into college, into grad school. But like the tough times, like grad school, it was not easy, and I felt like lonely and distracted and bored and stressed and frustrated at times. Well, EDM, it didn't really, like, it wasn't an escape or a distraction, but it got me through it. It was something to do on the side. Like, oh, I gotta find more songs. I gotta download more songs. I gotta make more mixes. There was this genre and that genre. Oh, this is this year's like Tomorrowland sets, this or Ultra Music Festival sets. It gave me something to look forward to. It gave me something to be excited about, to be hyped about. Because sometimes you can't help but feel and compare, that, oh, you're stuck here and you're at what point in your life and you're missing out, or your friends are out doing this and that, or going to this or that event, a concert, seeing this and that artist, and you're in grad school. I mean, you're doing it for a better future, but at what cost, But the cost is, if the cost is shallow, like, oh, I can't go to a couple of EDM concerts. I know it's pretty superficial, but still. But surprisingly, it worked out in the end. I guess in a way it usually does. I amassed a sizable music collection. I played for a few events that I cared about, for people I cared about and were cool with me and respected and appreciated me. I eventually got to go to my fair share of shows, and I got to be more selective with the shows. I didn't get so wrapped up with the crowd, or I don't have like a rave fam. I'll be honest, I don't take any drugs, or I don't really need any for EDM concerts. Maybe a drink here or there, but those are expensive or overpriced to begin with. Well, I'll be honest, we also pre-game before the shows sometimes. But I learned not to be crazy. I do enough to appreciate the event I go to. A little side note was, when I was exploring music, not only did I download music, but I sometimes, there was this one CD store called Rasputin's, right? So I'll go to the electronic music section and just buy cheap old albums. Yeah, for like $2 to $5 each, somewhere even $1. So maybe some old artists like Paul Van Dyke or something, and you just like rip all the songs, download it. You could even sell the albums back if you wanted to, but you find some hidden gems on there that you do not expect. And the events I did go to, of course, it wasn't always by myself. I think only Second Sky was by myself, and W that one time too. But I go with my brother, and I go with my cousins. Sometimes I run into cousins. When I began working, one coworker, he was really into that scene too. He was similar to me. He felt like he missed out on a lot. But we went to our fair share of events together, or the one time we went to Hardwell, and we didn't see each other there, but we knew about it. We talked about it. And I know my wife isn't as into it as I am, but I'm grateful to introduce EDM to her. Our first EDM show together was Rez, and then I had to take her to see Hardwell, who's one of my favorites. It was during that comeback, where he took a big hiatus for about 4 years, 2018 to 2022, and he announced a world tour, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta go. And I took a break at work in order to buy the tickets, and I admit it, I'm kind of dorky in that I record some of my favorite songs at the EDM events I go to. And I know everyone records songs, or sometimes I can just listen to the song on my own or watch it at an Ultra set or Tomorrowland set, but it's my recording, it's my memory. And I admit I'm dorky in the sense that I sing along at the concerts, and then you hear me on those videos, but it's like a little personal touch, and say some videos get a few thousand views and people appreciate it. Another fun tidbit I would like to share was, when I was leaving my old job, I wanted to show my appreciation to my coworkers. So heck, one of my favorite artists, Rez, was in town again, so I bought all tickets for all of them to go see Rez. It was very affordable. I mean, I'm not going to break the bank for them, but yeah, I helped organize it and coordinate the logistics, the meetup times, the parking. We all met up, took pictures, and we vibed to Rez, because a lot of them, they're not into EDM as much as I am, or they never even heard of Rez. If anything, I think Rez is a good introduction to EDM for anybody, because you don't want the craziness of like a hardstyle show or a dubstep show or a trap show. But I wasn't going to treat them to Hardwell or Martin Garrix. I couldn't afford that. But yeah, EDM. And I don't know much about Plur, like peace, love, unity, respect. I just know that little handshake thing. You get a couple bracelets. And I got a couple bracelets myself. And hopefully the scene is still Plur and still has that positive aspect. It's still a welcoming scene, an accepting scene, a happy scene. As long as it doesn't get too commercialized, as long as there's not many bad actors or bros or thieves. I mean, I never got anything stolen, but I hear stories about that. Quick tidbit, yeah, Zed and Cascade at a Las Vegas nightclub. Okay, I could check those off my belt too. But yeah, like I say, I'm glad to have experienced EDM in my life, to listen to the music, to dabble with DJing a bit, to go to some live shows, to see some big name artists, to explore it on my own. Well, anyways, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.